Okay, so we're on week 3 of the Buildings and Urban Scenes project. So the first week I talked a little bit about drawing buildings in perspective. So that was one of the demos that I did on that week. So basic idea is that if you're drawing a building like this, you'd find that if you're drawing, say, the floor, going from the floor line up to the guttering level, all these different bits would be slightly different angles, and they would all fan out like that. Around about your eye level would be a horizontal line. So this side of the building would fan out this side, and then this side of the building would be fanning out that side. So that's the basic idea. For drawing buildings, you want to aim for not having any of these at the same angle. They all want to just be slightly different. So that's the gist of that one. Last week I then went on to a little bit about drawing street scenes and suggesting perhaps you might want to use like line and wash or just line and some sort of tone. So that was one of the demos from last week, and that's one of the others. I just showed a couple of my sketches, sketchbook, things like that. This one is actually pen lines and then some watercolour wash, a little bit of white mixed in with that. And then that's another one using line and these brush pens, sketching brush pens that I tend to use a lot of for sketching. So these are called Tombos. So that's a couple of weeks. I thought today I would just talk a little bit about using charcoal. So this was something that I had a request for back when we were designing the programme. It's a very messy medium, charcoal. And if you want to have a go, I've got this is some charcoal here and here. And this was sort of an example of one of my, I don't do a lot of charcoal drawings. This is one I did quite a few years ago. From just standing up at the top of the high street there, looking down. So this I did over a couple of sessions, just gradually building up the drawing. I think with this one, I started with the black lines. I started with almost like a line drawing, then added the tone to it. So it's a mixture of willow and compressed charcoal. So the different kinds of charcoal you can get. So this is willow charcoal. So this is the first kind of charcoal that I ever came across. And this is literally just little twigs. Sometimes it's called vine charcoal, but it's basically just twigs turned into charcoal. So it goes through that heat process that turns the wood into charcoal. And you can go quite dark like that. It depends a little bit on the paper you're drawing on. So this has got a little bit more texture than this one. And this smoother paper, I find it goes more a kind of dark grey. You can get almost black if you go on a more textured paper. So that's that. You can kind of put the charcoal down. You can blend it a little bit. The way I tend to work is I'll put some down like that, and then I tend to just work it into the paper a little bit. You can remove it to an extent with a rubber, and I usually use, well, sometimes I just wipe it away a little bit, and then I use one of these plastic rubbers. You need to keep your rubber fairly clean, otherwise once they get clogged, they tend to just smear. But a nice plastic rubber, that will take it back to about that. So I'm not quite back to the paper, there's still a bit of grey there, but you can rub away quite a bit of the charcoal. So that's one way. Another way is to get one of these putty rubbers, and with one of these you can just kind of lift out little areas like that. So you can lighten just small details. So they're quite useful for that sort of thing. The other alternative is those little mechanical rubbers with the batteries in, and again you can just lift out little spots of light, so that can be really handy. The other kind of charcoal you can get is compressed charcoal, so it's one stick of that. So that comes something a bit like that. This is actually called a Conte stick, but I think it is pretty much compressed charcoal. So these are basically the charcoal all ground up and then stuck together again. You can also get these as a pencil, so a charcoal pencil. So if you go out and buy sets of charcoal pencils, that's sort of what you're getting. This tends to be quite a bit darker. It's a much blacker mark than the willow charcoal, and the same as this. and I also find it's a lot harder to shift it. So if I want to rub this out, you know, if I work into that, that will kind of smear. I also find that it's, you know, I can get it a little bit lighter, but it's not quite as light as I would with the willow. I tend to prefer the willow to draw with, and then what I tend then to is perhaps a few details, or if I want it very dark in places, I'll then use the compressed charcoal. So I've got both here, so if you want to try them out, they're both here, you're welcome to use them. Right, okay, so as a sort of demo, I thought maybe I'll do a little bit on here. One of the advantages of charcoal is that you can kind of block in tones very quickly. You get a good sense of light and dark. So if I was going to draw this little cottage, we've got chimney here, and then this lower bit here. So it's probably not going to be very, very accurate because I'm working quite quickly, but hopefully get an impression of what we've got here. And then that part of the thatch comes a bit further down. Then we've got one end that's coming down like that. If it's a very light area, I tend to just leave that light and then maybe just add tiny bits. With the thatch, I'm probably going to have to go darker than it needs to be. So this area here, and then I'll then lighten that up. You can get those sort of paper blenders with that look a bit like a pencil. Yeah, that sort of thing. I've got some somewhere. I don't know what I've done with those, but they're quite good for just blending it in, and that would keep your hands a bit cleaner than just going in with your fingers, which is what I've always done when I started. So that works quite nicely. You can also get things like little bits of leather, chamois leather, to blend in, and that works quite nicely too. So to get something a bit more approaching the tones I'm doing there, so I can lift bits out like that, just having a cleaner finger here and there. Maybe lift a little bit of that out. So it's a bit like you have to go in dark and then lighten up. It's hard to go straight in and get that tone that I've got there. So if we do that, and then I've just lost that window there, so I'll re-establish that in the dark. Get that shadow in there. Coming down to there. Then we've got some shadows underneath here. Let's really draw those in, and then just soften that edge out with my fingers. But you can see very quickly, it's a very quick way of getting some tones down. If I was using a pencil to get that all blocked in, that would take me, you know, it'd be probably an hour or so just getting that down. That comes down to there. The end of the cottage is to here. And then the background, work that a little bit of something in there. I'll do the same on that side, but I'll just do a little bit of trees in the background here. So just working that fairly solidly. And then individual windows, these are almost like a sort of mid-tone, so just try and blend that in like that. And then I could go in, I don't know if I always bother with sometimes you get some fine, once you've worn your charcoal down into like a little wedge shape, you can then use that to get some fine lines. You need to do that a bit quicker, or could use a ruler as well if you wanted, just to get an impression of that weatherboarding. And then it's probably at this stage I'll perhaps use the charcoal pencil just to get some more accurate shapes. We've got some nice shadow patterns here. So you can, combine the two, and I'll use this for the window bars. Obviously there's more I can pop in there, but I think I'll just get that a little bit dark on that end. And a nice strong shadow there. Okay. So that's kind of how I'd go about charcoal. And as you can see, it's much quicker than painting, sort of, perhaps not watercolour, but certainly quicker than not, working in oil painting.
Can you actually paint over the top of that charcoal with various paints?
I think you need to fix it. So probably if you fixed it in place, you could. There are some like when I got my first set of oil paints, it had like bits of charcoal with it, and the idea was like you sort of draw out with the charcoal shapes and then paint into it. I always found it went very dark and very black, and it just mixed in and muddied the paint. But I've come across people that maybe draw out the drawing and then fix it with some fixative. This, it will be quite delicate, which is quite a nice quality. I tend to use hairspray. I'm not sure what I've put in this. It's either hairspray or might be some fixative, but you can sort of fix them. Just do, give it.
It's the same as in pastel.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, it's exactly the same as pastel. Sort of have it vertical and then sort of give it a good spray over. But I think once you've done that, you could paint over it. Yeah. And I do know of people that will draw out quite a complicated design in charcoal and then use that as the drawings to do their oil painting or whatever they've got. Probably would be more suitable to oil painting or acrylic. Watercolour, people don't tend to use charcoal in watercolour, but there's no reason why you shouldn't do anything really. Yeah, it'd be worth experimenting. Okay, so if anybody wants to try, I've got plenty here.